properly. Good afternoon, ladies and a couple of gentlemen. Are we still feeling good? Yes. Listen, you look good. Yes, you're still looking good. Thank you for being here. I'm going to follow Go Jaja. And did I leave my phone? I did. I'm going to grab... Oh, yes. I want to stand. I want you guys to stand. I'm going to copy her to the letter. Pretend like you like me because I said that I was, thank you. I said I was going to do a selfie. My daughter is here. She just had a baby, but she's in downtown Chicago. She's waiting for me for after this. So I said, I'm going to send you a picture and you're going to see how they absolutely love your mama. So let me get you guys to stand. Please. Woo! And... Thank you for participating. I appreciate that so very much. As said, my name is Darcell, Dr. Darcell Streeter. I have a talk that I have now started to trademark because I've done it in several places about 4 different times, and it has 4 different subtitles. It's called Softness as a Superpower, or Softness is a Superpower. And this is around soft power strategy. I see a stage colleague here that I was in Paris with in the back there, and she's amazing. I can't, if she hasn't spoken already, I can't wait to hear her as well. I know it's Dr. somebody. But she has a book too. Look, I'm pushing hers. But I am going to read from one of my chapters, not the whole chapter, just the title. And then I'm going to move into the full presentation because I want you all to hear this. Again, this is about soft power strategy. And this is so important because we as women leaders, and I'm speaking to everyone, but because I run an organization, 25-year organization that empowers women from all walks of life, because I have been an executive leader for years, and when I was being formed in the leadership cycle, I was encouraged to be rigid, to be aggressive, to have these hard lines, especially because there were, my team reporting, and if, oh, Darcell, if you wanted to be taken seriously, you need to know how to command, and the way that you command was a strong, stiff, aggressive, firm tone. Don't smile too much, and make sure your words are tempered a particular way and enunciated a particular way. And so it went against the very design of my nature, but I did it because that's how I was trained to do. And as one who is an ordained minister also, my journey started academically and both being ordained in biblical studies, and then moved into human services, and then into applied learning sciences. So everything about how I know to love people went against the way I was trained. And so I had to deconstruct all of that. Page 38 of my book, and I did bring a couple of copies and I left them out front that I'm gifting, Reflections of Becoming Her, Healed, Effective, and Reigning. This chapter is called Go Past Stop. Again, I'm just reading a couple of lines. And Go Past Stop is about shattering internal glass ceilings. We have to deconstruct how we were taught to be successful, what we were taught success looks like, especially if you're in corporate America, or if you're moving throughout the world, if you're moving amongst people, if you're going to integrate with the movers and shakers, then you have to know what that looks like. But that was according to their lens. That was according to a formula that may have worked for them. That was according to trainings that they were bringing forward from how they were taught. It wasn't according to how they knew me, how they knew my internal design. And it wasn't even according to how I learned to own myself, right? You have to learn to own who you are first. And to do that, you have to know who you are. And to know who you are, you have to do a little work, as my sister said, the work beneath the work, okay? Go past stop, shattering internal glass ceilings. The ceiling cracks not because you force it to, but because you can no longer contain who you are becoming. There are ceilings we can point to, policies, titles, systems, histories, written long before we arrived. And then there are ceilings that hover quietly inside of us, unannounced, unnamed, and often unquestioned. And these are the ceilings that don't need permission to exist because they were built while we were learning how to belong. Internal ceilings are masterful camouflage. They disguise themselves as wisdom, as humility, as just being realistic, and they sound like your own voice, which is what makes them so convincing. And you don't experience them as limitations, you experience them as your truth. But they're not your truth, they're signals. Notice when you consistently shrink in certain places, and notice when your first response to an opportunity is a reason why it won't work. Notice when someone describes you in terms that feel both accurate and too small, and you don't correct them. These are not personality traits, these are ceilings operating as identity. And self-determination theory helps us to understand why these ceilings take such deep root. When our early environments failed to support three core human needs, autonomy, competence, and relatedness, we developed compensatory strategies. Shrinking was often one of them. Now, how does this correlate to soft power, or softness as a superpower? We take on this mantle of being in leadership, in women's leadership, of being the strong woman, going back to who I described at the top, at the opening of my speech. But actually, it's oftentimes a mask. Yeah, we are the strong woman, or we fit into this strong woman framework. But when you begin to unlayer that framework, you find that there are so many inherited limiting beliefs that we're actually fighting against, and we're masking so that we can walk out this identity that has been given to us, not one that we've designed for ourselves. And I've heard a lot of us in the room talking about designing our identities, transformational thinking. I call myself a transmutation coach versus a transformational coach. And what I mean by transmutation is that I take every single thing that has ever happened to me and I've transmuted it, alchemized it into where I want it to go and who I have been becoming. So I now construct who I am becoming based on the knowledge of who I no longer wish to be. Thank you. So going back to the business case for this, burnout is not a personality flaw. It's a load problem. Okay, if you if you overextend a lot in your workplace, if you're a high performer, period, you know that load is oftentimes rewarded, overextension is oftentimes rewarded, and burnout is worn as a leadership credential. And none of that is actually true. 41% of the world's employees experience highly daily stress. And we know that there's good stress and there's negative stress. So we're talking about the negative stress here, all right? But when you bring in the US and Canada, that rises to 49%. 60% of the people burning out are senior level women. 50% are senior level men. And when you add in a cultural lens, 77% are senior level black women. So when you think about why it's important to reframe how you see strong, you then realize that becoming soft is not what you may think in terms of I'm becoming this docile person whom anyone can talk to and approach in any type of way. No, it's actually me debunking what I have been trained to believe strength looks like. Because let me ask you this question. What if what you were taught about strength has cost you more than it has supported you? Think through that question. Softness is not weakness. It is regulation, it is clarity, and it is sustainable power. When you use a soft strategy approach, you also widen your ability to leverage your executive functions, because you're not functioning from a high stress level posture or position. You're functioning from a place of clarity, you're functioning from a place of regulation, and internal regulation is a powerful, powerful, powerful thing. When I learned how to regulate myself internally, oh, the silent and quiet damage I become. When I say damage, I mean that in a good way. The powerhouse you become quietly when you understand regulation in its true form. So the 4 anchors beneath this particular practice: why regulated leadership outperforms reactive leadership at any intersection of your professional life, of your personal life, of anything that you're dealing with. Polyvagal and neuroscience says that regulated bodies make sharper decisions. Again, when you actually take a moment to be more regulated, your decision window opens. When you're not regulated and you're reacting from a high stress place, what you see as options for choices actually closes, it limits, and you feel like you're limited in the decisions that you have to make, even in a short period of time. But actually, when you center and regulate yourself and you reframe how you're seeing the moment that you're experiencing, it opens up your executive functions, and your you can actually more clearly see the options that are in front of you. So your decision windows opens more when you're more regulated than it would when you are dysregulated in a moment that you're having either a high crisis or that you're having high stress levels and so forth. I'm a learning scientist, okay? Adult learning science also shows that adults learn through reflection and lived experience. So why not take everything that we have, if we go back and be reflective about how we show up in situations when it's high stress, when we're dysregulated, when we're overextended, when we're burned out, if we look at how we show up in those moments, then we can use that as lived experience to help begin the framework for how we want to show up tomorrow, how we want to show up in a very similar scenario, but the outcome looking differently. I'm going to tell you, your glow looks different when you're regulated, right? It does, glow coach. Your glow looks different when you're regulated. There's a type of presence, and it's both a bold and quiet presence that begins to just ooze out of you, right, when you are regulated, because your confidence is not birthed in external, right? Your confidence is born from within. Your confidence, it pushes and rises up out of the core of who you are now. So the best thing that you can do when you want to start to work on change and transmuting is to go inward and to deconstruct from the inside out, because we manifest from the inside out. You see you feel a different you long before you see a different you externally. And people, who they see in terms of who you are, is only seeing who you have already mastered within for a time now. It doesn't happen overnight. Okay, so when people start seeing you, it's because you've been doing this work for quite a while. Positive psychology teaches us that flourishing predicts performance and retention. So we can all agree to this. When we feel good, when we can come here and be making $10,000 at home or wherever we are in our business, or when we're in the work environment, and yes, we have the good stress and the bad stress. You know, if you're in a fast-paced work environment, you're going to have some stress levels. I just feel like in today's society, you're going to have stress levels anyway. I mean, maybe more than we're used to having. We're constantly considering different things. We're constantly facing different things. But you can still flourish in a high-stress environment. It depends on how you regulate yourself in that moment. And I have a system. The word pause is something that has become highly used. And I love the way I'm seeing people use the power of the pause. Quiet plug, I do have a podcast called The Power of the Pause with Dr. Darcell Street, is on Women Thrive TV. But the way that we're using that, I love to see the way different people are embracing the power of the pause. And I have a system, not P-A-U-S-E, but P-A-W-S, that I use to underscore the power of that pause. Oh, let me read this last block. Human-centered development says belonging and dignity scales outcomes. So we know this. So all of this is from why when you have a regulated team, or when you're a regulated leader, or you lead a regulated life, you're going to experience each of these quads at some point in your functionality and whatever it is that you are doing. So the PAWS framework, again, PAWS, I was just sitting, what was I doing when this came? Oh, I was writing for my podcast. And I was like, I wanted to do a play on pause. And when I started thinking through, I just started scribbling down. And I was like, oh, wait, I can make this a whole framework. Because as I was talking to myself, because I do talk to myself sometimes. But, I try to do it when no one else around. Let me not lie. I talk to myself quite often. But I do it because I'm thinking out loud. And I do it when, I try to do it when no one's around. Unless you know me. If you know me and you hear me in the next room and I'm having a whole monologue, you pay me no mind at all. You're like, oh, that's just Darcell. She's thinking. So interrupt reactivity and reclaim clarity and lead from intention. This is what, for me, my PAWS framework has done. And then when I am working with others and they're utilizing this is what it's starting to do for them. So the first P is pause, all right? You want to interrupt the reactivity. So when you're in moments and you know that you're going to be reactive instead of leading from an intentional posture, then you can take this moment, and this may seem like you're taking a long time, but actually it's not. It's something that can happen rather quickly. So you're going to interrupt your reactivity, and you're going to assess what is going on. So the P is for pause, interrupt the reactivity, giving yourself a moment, right, to think through what you're about to do. And then you're going to assess what's happening. So you're not just assessing your actions, you're assessing what triggered your action. All right, so we can be as developed as we think that we are, but each of us still have a trigger that can be triggered. How many of you know this? Okay, you have a trigger that can be triggered. All right, so to be aware of that trigger is one thing. When you are being forced out of regulation and you're forced into a dysregulated moment, take notice of what's happening quietly. You can do this quietly, what's happening within you, not just around you, because you can't control anyone else's behavior. But what you can do is take note of exactly how you responded to that. What was it in that person's particular word or action or deed or whatever it was that caused you to do that with your regulated self? Because you think you're very regulated and I got control of this and I've learned how to deal with my traumas, and that is great, right? Traumas and triggers, understanding those and balancing those, that's a wonderful thing. But it's not something that we have 100% control of, because if so, we would be perfected. And we're not, once we become perfected in this earth, we won't be here, right? We're going to consistently and continuously grow. All right, there's a passage, I'm going to throw this in there real quick. It says, press toward the mark of the high call that is in, and I'm going to say this according to my faith, that is in Christ Jesus, right? So if I'm being encouraged to press toward the mark, that means I am being encouraged to continuously move forward, to continuously regulate, to continuously self-actualize, so to continuously improve. I'm continuously pressing toward a higher mark. So when you are assessing what's happening in that moment, you're assessing what's happening within you. And then you want to be a witness to that. So if you see that it's happening, you're a witness that either it's affecting you some sort of way, or because of how it's affected you, like you're impacting someone else a certain way. So name what it is, okay? We're going to name what's going on, and then that's when you want to shift. You do have a moment. You do have enough time in these quick moments to make a different decision and have a different outcome. You actually really do. It's just you have to learn how to frame your thinking. You have to be intentional about how you speak to your body and how you tell your body, this is how we're going to think, this is how we're going to react. It's not going to work every time, and that lets you know that you're still growing, right? You have moments where you fail. I failed about 3 weeks ago, and immediately afterwards I was like, God dang, like, man, to myself. Because I knew it didn't have to be that way, but I was already wrapped up then, right? So that lets me know, still have work to do. All right, so for 90 seconds, these are the 4 moves that you can do in any moment. Interrupt the loop, so 3 slow exhales. I do breath work because there's a power, and we won't do it now because my time is short, but there's a power on breath And alignment, there's a power in this alignment when you are thinking a certain way, when you're breathing, and you are aligning with what you're thinking about. There's some power in that. And really quickly, name what is true. So when you're assessing, name what is true. You want to view things from compassion. Don't beat yourself up when you fail. When I had that moment, when I said, oh man, I messed up, I wasn't beating myself up, but I was naming what had happened, okay? And then choose what your move is next, all right? Rest is not a reward, it's the infrastructure that makes work possible. 5.4 million, that is the annual cost of burnout at the average of 1,000 per person U.S. companies. So reframe rest as a risk reduction. Schedule recovery as you schedule your revenue. All right, rest is not a reward, it is an infrastructure. Schedule your recovery as you schedule revenue, because your rest is revenue for you, okay? And then model the rhythm you want to keep. Model the rhythm that you want to keep. Lead from wholeness, not hurry. I challenge you to do one pause this week. You can schedule this into your calendar. And scheduling your rest in your calendar. Be intentional about what this looks like. This year, you want to make softness the credential you no longer apologize for. All right? Make softness the credential you no longer apologize for. You can scan that QR code. I actually have a series of books and journals dealing with softness as a superpower. The pause protocol is one of them. Deconstructing the strong woman, or unbecoming the strong woman, is another one of them. I'm not losing myself as a woman. I am reframing how I show up in my femininity, and embracing the soft side of that strategy. Thank you so much, and I want to close with this one last thing. You don't need to carry everything. You do need to carry yourself well. Yeah.